Is that a book, Jeremy?
Remember when you were in high school and they would force you to read?
So I'm going to read all of this book from page 1 to 372.
You'd be saddled with Wuthering Heights or David Copperfield. Then you'd have to go through the ordeal of turning the pages and looking at the words.
Dante. Goddamn poetry writing piece of shit.
Show me a person who says they love a good read and I'll show you a liar. But thankfully for us modern types, the good people of Hollywood are there to make sure nobody ever has to read again.
Now get your things together, kids. It's time to burn some books!
Movie adaptations are the only reason books should even exist. You can take the best bits, add more explosions, throw away anything that tries to make you think, then sit back and watch the money roll in.
Money fight!
Well, this tried and tested method has produced some of the greatest films we've ever seen. Every now and then they make an arse of it.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
And what we end up with is a thoughtful, tightly plotted, character-led adventure story that thankfully we can all ignore. Directed by Kevin Reynolds, The Count of Monte Cristo was released in 2002 and was an adaptation of Alexander Dumas' famous tale of revenge. Reynolds directed the massive hit Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves before Kevin Costner locked him out of the editing room, and was also responsible for the massive flop Waterworld before Kevin Costner locked him out of the editing room. Tired of working with vandalising pricks, Reynolds then turned his attention to... Wait, what's going on? This is my edit. F*** off, Costner. Despite strong critical praise, The Count of Monte Cristo was pretty much ignored by audiences. To this day, most people aren't even aware of its existence. What makes Monte Cristo such a great movie is the fact it's such a great adaptation. The book is nearly 1,000 pages long with more characters than the Chinese alphabet.
I read the words, or think I do, but then I get distracted, or I don't quite take it in, and I have to go back. I've been on the same 4 pages for 3 hours.
Turning all of that into a fast-paced 2-hour movie is no mean feat. As the screenwriter Jay Walpert said himself,
the great concern became, how do I synthesize this in 2 hours? Something that really has loads of characters, loads of locations, very little action. How do I get that into a powerful movie?
The Count of Monte Cristo tells the tale of Edmond Dantes, a wide-eyed innocent who is betrayed by his best friend and wrongfully imprisoned for 13 years. Whilst inside, he meets an old soldier who teaches him how to use his mind as well as his body. Edmond eventually escapes then, after finding the lost treasure of Spada, reinvents himself as a member of the French aristocracy before exacting Machiavellian revenge upon the people who wronged him. And that's it. That's like the entire story in 2 sentences. Thanks for wasting everyone's time, Alexander. The original novel was a serialisation for a French newspaper. It was sprawling, complicated, with dozens of story threads. I mean, we all gave up and lost, and we didn't even have to read that. Staying true to the spirit of the novel is difficult. What should you keep, cut, or change? Well, you can't mess with the basic through line. That would be a terrible idea. So Edmund's wrongful imprisonment, his escape, his reinvention as the Count, all of that stuff needs to stay. Good adaptations are about keeping the essentials. Can you imagine Jurassic Park without the dinosaurs? Or Harry Potter without a wizard school? Can you imagine Lord of the Rings without the homoerotic undertones? The movie narrows everything down to just 3 key players, yet manages to preserve the essence of the source material by focusing on the people in Edmond's life who have hurt him the most, namely Mercedes, his long-lost love, and Fernand, his best friend come mortal enemy. Any character or plot that doesn't service the core narrative gets ejected, and what you're left with is a streamlined version that's faithful but stripped down enough to turn into a tighter story. Was that really so hard? After simplifying things, the filmmakers inevitably have to make changes, and this is where it gets tricky. Add the wrong element to a beloved narrative, and you could end up ruining the entire thing. Anything you add needs to strengthen the spine, and with the Kevin Reynolds adaptation, there's 3 clever alterations. The first is a major spoiler, so I'm not going to tell you about it, but the second is the reverse nature of Edmond's relationship with Fernand. In the book, Fernand is Edmond's rival, a man in a weaker position who masterminds Edmond's imprisonment to further his own career, whilst in the movie he's a best friend who betrays him out of jealousy. This change serves to make the betrayal more personal, because there's nothing worse than being stabbed in the back by someone that you trust.
How did you ever call yourself my friend?
We were friends, Edmond.
Finally, we have the creation of a character that isn't in the book.
I am Armand Dorléac, the Warden of Chateau d'If.
Played by quintessential movie bastard Michael Wincott, Dorléac exists purely to compound Edmond's suffering, which is really important because the scriptwriter only has a limited amount of time to sell the unfairness of the situation. At the beginning of the story, Edmond is given everything he ever dreamed of.
Are you in trouble?
No, I'm Captain.
Then Dorléac takes all of it away.
What's my crime? What's my crime?
1 minute we're in heaven, the next minute we're in hell. Such is life. Betrayal and revenge are pretty common subjects in Hollywood movies, and whilst there's nothing wrong with the bad guy wanting to punish the hero because he killed his brother, or even the hero wanting to punish the bad guy because he killed his boyfriend, it's surface level and doesn't really have much depth. Much like the assembly of an Argos coffee table, real betrayal is extremely complicated, and that's what makes Monte Cristo such a watchable movie. Fernand doesn't betray Edmond for a job or for a woman, he does it because he's rich and miserable and he can't stand the fact his best friend is poor and happy.
Why? In God's name, why? Because you're the son of a clerk! And I'm not supposed to want to be you.
Then when Edmond finally escapes and has the opportunity to go on a stab-happy rampage, he chooses poetic justice instead.
Death is too good for them. They must suffer as I suffered.
There's underlying irony as well. Edmond is sent to jail an innocent man, then after he escapes he becomes a criminal. But ultimately the whole thing is about redemption. Underscoring the entire story is the message that revenge is pointless and only God has the right to deal out death and judgment.
I don't believe in God.
It doesn't matter. He believes in you.
You just don't see these big themes in major Hollywood movies anymore, and if you do, they're the exception. Honestly, how many blockbusters from the last 15 years can you think of that actually have something intelligent to say about life, the universe and everything?
Condoms! Yes! Condoms!
Sometimes throwaway entertainment is a lot of fun, but I can't remember the last time I watched a major cinema release and actually felt something. Like I felt at the end of Dances with Wolves, or at the end of The Untouchables, or at the end of Field of Dreams.
Look into my eyes.
Off, Costner. I'm going to say something now that a lot of you won't like, but here it is. Mad Max Fury Road is wildly overrated. Look, it's brilliantly made, but what difference does it make if I don't care? By the third act, I'd seen more wreckage than a road trip with Ant McPartlin. There's only so many times you can see big trucks smashing into each other before you become completely desensitised. If you ask me, great action scenes aren't good because of the choreography. They work because the relationships between the people involved are interesting. That's what I love most about Monte Cristo. It's a movie that understands the importance of restraint. All of the action scenes are small, but they're exactly what they need to be. Sometimes you can turn the action right up, but you shouldn't just do it for the sake of it.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
Let's look at the knife fight scene with Jacopo. Edmond has just escaped from the Chateau d'If, only to be accosted by a group of pirates. Because Edmond has accidentally discovered them, the captain tells him he will have to defeat their best man in combat if he wants to escape with his life. The entire sequence is over in less than 20 seconds, and by the end, Edmond has joined the crew, Jacopo has become a true friend for life, and we've learned that Edmond is now physically formidable thanks to his time spent training with Abi Faraya. Now take a look at this more recent action scene for comparison. I'm not saying big action sequences can't be great. But they have to be earned. And they should only be long enough to serve their purpose. So the lesson is... The Count of Monte Cristo was a movie out of its time. In a post-Independence Day world, mainstream cinema had gotten big, loud and stupid. Just 1 year later, Pirates of the Caribbean was released, and even though both movies featured pirates, pistols, cutlasses and Jay Walpert, Monte Cristo's sank and pirates soared. I'm not attacking Pirates of the Caribbean, it's a good movie, but it's good in a different way. It's kind of like having a date night with Bill Cosby. Sure, it's exciting and fun at the time, but when you wake up in the morning, you can't really remember any of it.
What's the hurry? Say what's in this drink?
Monte Cristo was released in January, which is statistically the worst month of the year for box office returns. If a studio doesn't have faith in a movie, this is where they dump it faster than Boris Johnson dumps one of his kids. Then there was the problem that just 4 weeks before its release, another famous adaptation had kind of swallowed the limelight.
You shall not pass!
Much like Edmond Dantes, the movie was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Now I couldn't live in a world where you have everything and I have nothing.
Who are you?
I'm the Count of Monte Cristo, but my friends call me Edmond Dantes.
If you ask me, The Count of Monte Cristo is one of the greatest adventure movies ever made. It's epic yet simple, fast-paced yet cerebral, and it deserves to have its moment in the sun.
Last Saturday night, I went in to see it with a real audience, and I couldn't take my eyes off a girl who was in the center section, who was leaning forward on the edge of her seat, just riveted. What, because I was so good? No, because Dumas is so good. Because a tale was being told about people she really cared about. It's all about story. It's all about character. And these people have not had story and character in so long.